So political tension is rising in Zimbabwe, and as the economy implodes, there are some reports of conflict within the ruling Zanu-PF. South Africa is finally sending envoys. The hashtag Zimbabwean Lives Matter has been gaining momentum. For more then on the situation in Zimbabwe, we're joined by Brian Raftopoulos. He's a researcher, in fact, director of research with the Solidarity Peace Trust. Brian, a very good afternoon to you. Good to see you. So just how complex a situation are Baleka Mbete and Sydney Mufamadi going into in Zimbabwe?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. They're going into a very complicated situation. Zanu-PF, this is not the first time it's been driven by factionalism. Throughout its history, from the liberation struggle days, Mugabe, in the Mugabe period, he managed to keep some level of balance, regional, ideological, within the party, but at the center of it was, of course, the military. And since 2017, the coup in 2017, the military have come increasingly to the fore. But the problem now is, of course, the factionalism has deepened within the context of the deepening crisis in the economy and a growing sense of isolation of this regime internationally. And last but not least, finally, South African government has said something about this and is attempting to make an intervention. We will have to see how serious this intervention is. The South African government's history on the Zimbabwe crisis has not been a very good one, and has tended to be complicit with the authoritarian regime since the Mugabe days.
Let me ask you then, Brian, about President Emmerson Mnangagwa and just how big a stake of the power he continues to wield then, even if there are, as you say, some divisions within the ranks.
Yeah, I mean, he's still in power, but what's clear is that there's real divisions now within the top ranks of the party and in the security sector, and this is, of course, concerning for Mnangagwa, who was brought to power by the military, and is, I think, a deeply unpopular figure, not only within his own party but within the country as a whole. So I think he's holding on to power quite desperately at the moment. And yeah, I think he's got a whole series of problems ahead of him in the coming months.
And as the two South African envoys prepare to go to Zimbabwe, Baleka Mbete again and Sydney Mufamadi, are we not overestimating the level of influence that South Africa wields in Zimbabwean politics? Because there has been over the years very much an expectation that if there was going to be an answer or a successful mediation in Zimbabwe, it would come from South Africa. But yet here we sit in 2020 with very old problems.
I think it's unrealistic to expect only South Africa to be able to deal with the problem in Zimbabwe. And I think all serious analysts don't expect that. What they expect from South Africa is to take a lead in SADC in conjunction with international players who have, of course, a continuing interest in Zimbabwe for varying reasons, and the national politics and the national political forces. So it's not South Africa alone which can deal with this, but a combination of national pressure, regional pressure and international pressure, where they can come to some minimal consensus on how to move forward on Zimbabwe. We always hear that Zimbabweans must decide for themselves, and of course Zimbabweans have been deciding for themselves. The Zimbabwean opposition and civil society has been one of the most active on the continent since the 2000s, and has done pretty much everything to change the situation. Protests, demonstrations, stayaways, fought elections, won elections, been denied victory, lobbied at national, regional and international level, and but has come up continuously against an authoritarian state which is so embedded in its own corruption and control of the state that it refuses to give up power. So as I was saying, it's not just South Africa, it's not just the nationals, but a combination of forces which must now come together to put pressure on this regime.
Very quickly, we were speaking at the top about the state of the ruling Zanu-PF. I want to get your thoughts on the opposition, because it has itself come under fire for being too divided and often being sidetracked by internal division in its battle to try and move Zimbabwe forward as a democratic state.
That's absolutely true. The opposition has also itself to blame for its own divisions, and the divisions have not just started in the post-Tsvangirai period. They began in 2005 when Tsvangirai was still president. They have everything to do with lack of internal accountability, violence within the party, misogyny towards gender issues, and they sometimes have shot themselves in their own foot in their inability to deal with these internal problems. And that certainly contributed to the crisis.
Brian Raftopoulos, thank you so much for speaking to us on ENCA.